This is Colin, or it was before his episode. He's 31 and a data processor for a large finance company in London. He does what he's told and follows society's expectations of him. And, from what his parents tell him, he has a good life. He has a respectable job, a daily commute, a one-bed apartment and a pet goldfish called Vivian. He is happy. One morning, something unexpected happened to Colin. He was on the train at 9:15, as he does every morning to get into work for 10, stuck in an awkward position because the man in front of him had decided to open his Financial Times to its fullest, in Colin's personal space. Crouched and hunched over in the corner of the train, Colin came to a startling realization. He'd been here before, and he hated it. This was a strange feeling for Colin, who had never hated anything before in his life. The more he thought about it, the more Colin realised that he hated a lot of things in his life. He hated his job, he hated data, Microsoft Word autocorrect, and his cramped cubicle. He hated his colleagues and his boss. He hated his small one-bedroom apartment, his furnishings, and his designer spice rack. He hated his pet goldfish Vivian. He hated people who wore flip-flops, people who talk with their hands. He fucking hated fax machines, and how Mr. Patel puts his penny change in the charity box automatically, even though he would have done it anyway. He hated the meal for one choice at the Gordon Dragon. He hated pesto, George Michael karaoke, and John Cusack. But most of all, at that moment, he fucking hated insufferable arses who open their bullshit paper in his face. And he jumped up, tearing the paper into tiny pieces, shoving most of it in his mouth, howling like a wild animal. This is my time, he thought. And with a burst of impulse, he set about showing all the things he hated a lesson or two. Roaring into his office and stomping his way over to his cubicle, he stood on the chair and showed what he thought about Microsoft Word autocorrect and that fucking fax machine. He also found time to share his thoughts with his co-workers. He kicked and screamed whilst being removed from the premises, but this wasn't enough. His blood was still boiled, and like a raging bull he seemed for more, ramming the door of his apartment off his hinges. Crazed, he pounced around the room, crashing and destroying everything in his path, including, quite literally, devouring his spice rack. Then it caught his eye. There she was. Laughing uncontrollably, he picked her up above his head, at the top of his lungs, screaming, "You shiny, yellow tart!" And he threw her down the toilet. Then he jumped miles into the air and smashed through the ceiling of Mr. Patel's shop, grabbing the charity box and draining its contents into his mouth. "Charity is my choice, you fuck! You fucking fuck!" And then he started to run. He didn't know where he was going. He just started to run faster and faster, faster than he'd ever run before. Suddenly he found himself in the woods, and he stopped to drink at a stream. His mouth was dry and the taste of cobblers and turmeric was starting to bother him. And that's when it happened. The beginning of his life. That's when he met Linda. You'll be happy to know that Colin recovered from his uncontrollable rage and is much better now. He lives with Linda in a nudist colony just outside of Kent. Enjoying a peaceful existence, Colin and Linda fill their time with many hobbies, including making and selling homemade preserves by the roadside. To date, they have 38 different kinds, including Sleepy Time and Van Damme Jam.